Capcom just dropped the trailer. Resident Evil Code Veronica, one of the most requested remakes in gaming history, is finally happening. But here's the problem. A huge portion of the modern gaming community has never actually played the original. And if you go into this upcoming remake completely blind, you are going to miss out one of the greatest narrative masterclasses this franchise has ever produced. So today, this is the ultimate breakdown of everything you need to know about Resident Evil Code Veronica before the remake officially drops. Before we dive into the lore, let me tell you a wild piece of gaming history that a lot of people completely forget. Code Veronica was originally supposed to be the real Resident Evil 3, not a spin-off, not a side project, the actual mainline sequel. Because this game directly continued the main storyline of RE2, but was launching on the Sega Dreamcast first, Capcom literally stripped its number away and slapped a subtitle on it. A single corporate business decision changed gaming history, and millions of fans skipped a literal masterpiece just because it was missing a single digit in a title, which is genuinely one of the biggest tragedies in gaming, because this game features a story that is beautifully dark, twisted, and arguably the best in the entire franchise. Let's break it down. The year is December 1998, 3 months after the catastrophic Raccoon City incident. For quick context, the events of Resident Evil 2 just concluded. Leon and Claire barely made it out alive, and the US government nuked Raccoon City off the map to contain the viral outbreak. But Claire Redfield, she is nowhere near done. Claire is still desperately hunting for her missing brother, Chris Redfield. So she does what any totally reasonable, average teenager would do. She solo infiltrates an Umbrella high-security corporate facility in Paris. No backup, no real plan, just pure vibes, determination, and a leather jacket. Unsurprisingly, running gunfights against corporate military squads didn't end well. Claire gets captured by Umbrella's security team and is immediately shipped off to Rockfort Island, a highly classified, remote prison complex owned by Umbrella in the middle of the Southern Ocean. And that is exactly where our nightmare begins. Now, Rockfort Island is definitely not your average prison. This place is a massive standalone umbrella operation featuring military training complexes, hidden research labs, and residential areas all on one isolated island. Claire wakes up trapped in a dark cell, but almost immediately the entire island wildly shakes. A rival, mysterious paramilitary organization begins heavily bombing the base. During the chaotic airstrike, containment tanks break, the T-virus leaks everywhere. Within hours, the entire island transforms into a zombie-infested wasteland. Amidst the absolute ruin, Claire meets Rodrigo, the heavily wounded Umbrella security officer who originally captured her, feeling a sudden stroke of pity and figuring she just end up a zombie bed. Rodrigo unlocks her cell anyway and sets her free. As soon as she hits the surface, Claire crosses paths with another survivor, Steve Burnside. He's a cocky, dual pistol wielding, 17-year-old prisoner who quickly becomes Claire's partner in crime. Now Steve is incredibly polarizing. The RE community is heavily divided on him. Half the fans love his arc, and the other half want to yeet him straight into the ocean, but stick with him. His ending hits way harder than you think. Escaping the island wasn't going to be a walk in the park, because standing directly in their way was the island's ruthless commander, Alfred Ashford, the son of Dr. Alexander Ashford, one of Umbrella's founding family members. Alfred is not your standard, run-of-the-mill Resident Evil villain. The guy is completely, utterly psychotic and mentally unstable. He runs the island like a cruel dictator, but the most unsettling part about him, cross-dressing as his twin sister, Alexia Ashford, because he is deeply, toxically obsessed with her. She is his entire reason for existing. Is it incredibly creepy? Absolutely. But it made the original game feel uniquely disturbing in a way modern gaming horror rarely replicate. Alfred spends the half time of the game obsessively hunting Claire and Steve down, sniping at them from the bridges, taunting them from a clock tower, and playing sadistic games. He easily ranks as one of the most unhinged antagonists Capcom has ever created. This is where the narrative goes incredibly deep, so pay close attention. The history of the Ashford family is a literal backbone of this entire game. Oswald E. Spencer, Edward Ashford, and James Marcus. These were the three legendary co-founders who originally built the Umbrella Corporation from scratch. The Ashfords were prestigious British nobility, but by the time Edward's son, Alexander, took over, the family began losing its scientific dominance inside Umbrella to Spencer's faction. Desperate to restore his family's legacy and power, Alexander started a highly controversial genetic experiment known as Project Code Veronica. The concept was pure sci-fi madness. Alexander took mummified DNA from the family's brilliant, centuries-old matriarch, Veronica Ashford, and combined it with his own DNA via a surrogate mother to artificially create children who would inherit her superhuman genius. The result of this experiment, twins, Alfred, who turned out to have completely average intelligence, and Alexia, who turned out to be a child prodigy, unlike anything the world had ever seen. Alexia graduated from university at the insane age of 10 years old. She immediately joined Umbrella's research team and began developing a brand new wild strain. The standard T virus, the one responsible for the Raccoon City disaster, has one massive flaw. It liquefies brain function. You mutate, you became a mindless zombie. Game over. Alexia's ultimate goal was to fix that flaw. She wanted a virus that granted immense physical power and biological mutation, but left the host human intelligence completely intact. And that's how she engineered the T-Veronica virus. She engineered it by blending the ancient progenitor virus with genetic material from a queen ant. She was deeply fascinated by ant ecosystems, where one supreme queen controls everything while soldiers blindly serve her. So yes, at 12 years old, she literally modeled a bioweapon around ants because she wanted to rule the planet as a literal queen. Talk about an ego. But things took a dark turn when Alexia and Alfred discovered research logs, providing they weren't normal children, but rather artificial clones created in a lab. They instantly turned on their father. They injected Alexander with an unstable prototype of the T-Veronica virus. He mutated into a horrific, blind monstrosity, later known as Nosferatu. The twin coldly locked their own mutant father in a dungeon beneath their Antarctic base and move on. And then Alexia made her ultimate move. She injected herself with the refined T-Veronica virus and entered a 15-year cryogenic status. Her med showed it would take exactly 15 years of her body to slowly adapt and perfectly fuse with the virus at sub-zero temperatures without losing her mind. She left Alfred behind to guard her sleeping pod, and she waited for 15 long years. While all this Ashford family drama is unfolding at the South Pole, a ghost from the past suddenly infiltrates Rockfort Island, Albert Wesker. If you are caught up on the Resident Evil lore, you know Wesker was the traitorous STARS captain from the first game who was seemingly impaled and killed by a tyrant. But surprise, he survived by injecting himself with an experimental prototype virus prior to the attack. And this is not the Wesker we remember. He now possesses superhuman speed, godlike strength, and his eyes literally glow red. Meanwhile, after receiving distress coordinates from Leon, Claire Redfield finally arrives on Rockfort Island to rescue Claire. But when he gets there, he encounters the dying guard, Rodrigo, who informed Chris that Claire has already escaped the island via plane and headed to the Antarctic base. But before Chris can leave, he is suddenly confronted by Wesker. Wesker isn't working for Umbrella anymore. He's leading a rival strike team, and his sole objective is to extract a sample of the T-Veronica virus from Alexia. Wesker casually beats Chris to a pulp using his superhuman speed, brags about his powers, and leaves for Antarctica. Claire and Steve manage to land a plane at Umbrella's freezing Antarctic transport facility, but the outbreak has already followed them there. As they attempt to escape, Alexia, who has finally awoken from the 15-year slumber, uses massive fiery plant tentacles to violently flip their heavy transport truck, taking them both hostage. Chris arrives shortly after, tracking Wesker's trail to the snow base. Now every single main player is in the exact same location for the grand finale. Alexia brutally injects a captured Steve with the T-Veronica virus. He mutates into a massive axe-wielding reptilian giant and goes on a blind rampage, cornering Claire. Claire is trapped, refusing to fight her friend, but right as she's about to be struck down, a literal miracle happens. Despite the overwhelming viral corruption and mental takeover, Steve's humanity breaks through. At the absolute last second, he refuses to hurt Claire, turns his weapon around and cuts Alexia's tentacle to save her. Alexia instantly retaliates with the fatal blow. Steve reverts to his normal human form, and right before dying in Claire's arms, he confesses that he loved her.
I love you.
He was only 17. Honestly, that scene an absolute gut punch. With Steve gone, it's time for the final showdown. Chris faces down both Wesker and Alexia in back-to-back iconic battles, but the fight is suddenly interrupted by Alexia, who can now set her own blood on fire and manipulate reality. Wesker takes one look at fully mutated Alexia, realizes she is a walking cheat code, literally says, "Nope, not my problem right now," and just sprints out of the room. Genuinely the smartest guy in the room. Chris is forced to battle Alexia alone. He manages to destroy her final insectoid from using the linear launcher, an experiment experimental energy weapon secretly built by her own father, Alexander, especially as a failsafe to execute his daughter if she ever became too dangerous. Think about that. Her own created knew she would eventually become an existential threat to humanity. With the facility's self-destruct sequence rapidly counting down, Wesker ambushes Claire one last time because he successfully harvested a T-Veronica sample directly from the Steve's body. Chris cuts him off, triggering a final fistfight. Using the collapsing environment, Chris drops tons of heavy steel girders onto Wesker, forcing a temporary stalemate as the base explodes around them. Chris and Claire spin to a Harrier jump jet and escape into the polar night just as the entire base is vaporized safely in the air. Chris looks at his sister and promises, "It's payback time. We are going to destroy Umbrella once and for all." And that, guys, is the legendary story of Code Veronica. So what exactly do we know about this upcoming remake? According to official reports, Capcom is shortening the title slightly to just Resident Evil Veronica, aiming for a release window around 2027 on PS5, Xbox Series X and S, and PC, and also on Nintendo Switch 2. But here is the coolest part. The official teaser trailer opened entirely in a first-person perspective, heavily mirroring the opening style of Resident Evil 7 and Village. However, inside leaks suggest that Capcom is implementing both first-person and third-person perspectives simultaneously, which is exactly what they just did with their latest 2026 title, Resident Evil 9 Requiem. So if you love the over-the-shoulder action style of the RE2 and RE4 remakes, you're totally covered. And if you want maximum immersive, terrifying horror, you can toggle it right into first-person. The story is being dynamically restructured. The voice acting is getting a massive modern upgrade. And seeing the twisted Ashford family lore in the current-gen graphics is going to be unreal. Don't forget when the original dropped back in 2000s. It earned a massive 94 on Metacritic. The game was always a masterpiece. The remake is just making sure the modern world finally recognizes it. That wraps up everything you need to know about Resident Evil Code Veronica, a true mainline sequel hidden behind a subtitle, finally getting the modern spotlight it deserves. What do you guys think? Did you ever play the original version on the Dreamcast or PS2? And what are you most excited to see in the remake? The tragic fate of Steve or the unhinged madness of Alfred? Let me know in the comments. Smash that like button if this video helped you out, and hit the subscribe button if you want more deep dive Resident Evil lore and classic PlayStation content. I'll catch you guys in the next one. Until then, keep gaming.